Welcome to our explainer. Today, we're doing something a little different. We're going to hit pause on the entire world and just zoom in on one single 24-hour period, Monday, August 18th, 2025, to see what it can really tell us about the huge forces shaping all of our lives. It's a powerful question, right? What can just 24 hours really show us? Well, as you'll see, a single day can capture pretty much everything, from the slow, careful work of diplomacy to the raw exercise of power, and even sudden, totally unforeseen tragedy. All right, so here's our roadmap for the day. We're going to start with some high-stakes peace talks happening on two different continents. Then we'll pivot to a power play shaking up the U.S. election system. After that, we'll look at some crises with a real human cost. And finally, we'll try to connect all the dots to see the bigger picture. Okay, first up, the delicate, high-wire act of diplomacy. On this one day, two massive, totally separate conflicts were right in the middle of some incredibly high-stakes negotiations. So on one side of the globe, you had these pivotal talks to end the war in Ukraine happening in Washington. And on the other, a potential breakthrough in the Gaza conflict was just announced. Two profoundly different wars, yet both saw some pretty significant diplomatic movement on the exact same day. And the sheer level of engagement in these Ukraine talks was, well, it was remarkable. You had President Zelenskyy meeting with President Trump and EU leaders right there at the White House, all focused on this core idea, getting NATO-style security guarantees. And in a really big signal, Zelenskyy even floated the idea of a summit that would include Vladimir Putin. Then came this statement from President Trump that kind of shifted the whole dynamic. He suggested a peace deal could actually be reached without a ceasefire in place first. That's a huge departure from traditional diplomacy and could, completely rewrite the playbook for how this conflict ends. Now, at the exact same time, on the other side of the world, immense public pressure was building in Israel. A massive nationwide rally demanding the government move faster to bring hostages home from Gaza absolutely flooded the streets of Tel Aviv. We're talking an estimated crowd of over 500,000 people. And in what really seemed like a direct response to that pressure, a major development was announced. Mediators from Egypt and Qatar had secured an agreement from Hamas for a ceasefire. The proposed time, 60 days. And crucially, the deal included exchanging half the remaining Israeli hostages for Palestinian prisoners. A real, tangible, though still fragile, step forward. All right, let's pivot. From the world of international diplomacy, we're now diving into a major power play right here in the United States, and this one is focused on the very foundation of its democracy, the election system. Now, to really get what's happening here, we need to be clear on the key tool at the center of this story, an executive order. So what is it? Simply put, it's a powerful directive from the president that basically functions like a law for the executive branch of the government. On this day, President Trump announced that he was planning to use this very tool to dramatically reshape how Americans vote. The plan, which he wanted in place for the 2026 midterm elections, would try to get rid of both mail-in ballots and electronic voting machines all across the country. The official reason given for this sweeping change was pretty straightforward, that these existing methods are, in his words, inaccurate and expensive. The administration also framed the move as being an advantage for the Republican Party. However, this plan immediately ran into a pretty significant counter-argument. Legal experts were quick to point out that the U.S. Constitution largely gives the power to run elections to individual states, not the federal government. So this sets the stage for what would likely be a major legal and constitutional fight. But while all the diplomats and politicians are making their plans, the world keeps turning, and sometimes it breaks. On this very same day, two different crises unfolded, reminding us of the immediate human cost of a world that's often just outside our control. In Russia's Ryazan region, a true tragedy struck. A catastrophic explosion just tore through a gunpowder workshop at an industrial plant. The human toll was just devastating. 24 people were confirmed dead, and more than 150 were injured. It led to a local day of mourning for the victims of this awful industrial disaster. At the same time, a natural threat was brewing off the U.S. East Coast. While Hurricane Erin was expected to stay offshore, its power was still strong enough to create dangerous, hazardous rip currents, putting beachgoers near Wilmington, North Carolina on high alert. So, let's take a breath. You have peace talks, a domestic power play, a deadly explosion, and a looming hurricane, all in the same 24-hour window. Let's step back for a second and see what this global snapshot truly shows us. You know, seeing it all laid out like this is pretty telling. On the same day that leaders were deliberately trying to shape the future with peace talks and political orders, random chance and natural forces were creating immediate, life-or-death realities somewhere else. It reveals this fundamental tension, doesn't it? The world we try to control and the world that just happens to us, all competing for our attention in the very same moment. And that's really the power of looking at just one day. It's a cross-section of our challenges and our ambitions, all sitting side by side. Which leaves one final question for you to think about. On a day filled with delicate peace talks, bold power plays, and sudden tragedy, which of these events do you think will have the longest echo?